And welcome everyone to the Loki Season 2 Episode 2 spoiler review. I'm Mitch, as always. You can follow me on Twitter at 692 tweets. The link tree for all of the socials is in the description. Um, so yeah, getting right into it, right off the bat. I'm not a fan of how they paced, like the pacing between these episodes. It it felt like something was missing. Like maybe not a whole other episode, but just something in between. I think it. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to explain. I think that the sense of urgency was shifted from like the TVA essentially collapsing to catching X5, right? And it the time loom does play a part in this episode, but it's like the smallest of B plots for me, and I just felt like that was an odd choice. But with the pacing aside, right? I thought this was a strong episode again for the second season of Loki. So getting right into it, the crux of this episode was Loki and Mobius needing to find the newcomer to the series, Hunter X5, who's gone rogue on the sacred timeline, essentially living a life that he either thinks he had before the TVA or the life he wants. Personally, I this was the idea that got me for this episode. I kind of want them to explore it a bit more, right? We had it. It had a tiny little bit of it last season, or the same premise last season, right? With Mobius and being a fan of jet skis, and everyone liking and hoping he wants his jet ski, but they've never really gone into it, right? And I want to know the mechanics of it. I know you don't need to explain everything in this, but just this one little bit, I kind of want him to come out and say if this was like a remnant of who he was before. So like he's had his mind, they've been plucked from their own timelines. They had their mind wiped to work for the TVA, whatever. Is this like the old Mobius or whoever it was coming through, or is this just something that Mobius likes? I kind of want them to not sit there and explain it, but just explore that idea a little bit. Like what exactly is this going on? I feel. I just think it's an interesting idea, right? Why is X5 going to the movies? Why is X5 wanting to become an actor? Why does Mobius like jet skis? Right, no, I think it's something they can do this season. I don't think they have to do it this season, but I think they have to do it at some point, right? Like, is this actually, you could go to the end goal of this show, right? If it's 3, 4, 5 seasons, whatever, the ending of it can be like, hey, Mobius gets his mind wiped and he's reverted back to the Mobius before, and then all of a sudden he's on a jet ski. Like that then explains that it was always a Mobius thing, right? But who knows? If it doesn't, it doesn't, and then it was always a TVA Mobius thing. But, But so far, I'm happy with how the show's done, right? But with things that the show has done that I'm really happy with, right? That the interrogation scene from this episode, loved that entire thing. Mobius and Loki with X5. I wish B15 had a bit more of a part to play in this, but she unfortunately didn't. But what can you do? But this show just loves to focus on character moments and just character in general. Right? You have your plot going on, but this is a very much a character centric type of show, and I think that's why it works. And getting to see the like Loki and Mobius interacting with not B15 with X5 and the interrogation and him just completely turning the tables and having them snap and leave the room and then formulate a plan to come back in and actually work together. I just thought it was to me, I think out of the show so far, including season 1, it might be one of their best moments, and especially one of their best moments in like Marvel TV, which some people's not saying a lot, but different conversation for a different day, I guess. But on the flip side of that, there was the scene with Mobius and Loki post leaving X5 in the interrogation room and having that key lime pie, where Loki does the, hey, do you remember the Avengers? Do you remember the plot of the Avengers? Do you remember the plot to Thor and why I was in the Avengers? Do you remember how this show started? Like, yes, everyone knows the plot to Avengers, Loki. You don't need to sit there and just waste. Obviously, it wasn't a long time. It was only a little snippet of the episode. It just felt out of place. It felt beneath how this show goes about writing everything, and in the context of how this show works, like Loki hasn't been removed from his timeline and that moment in his life for that long, right? Like, how long was Loki season 1? Like a week, right? Like, I don't think he needs to really go, hey, do you remember this time? Do you remember I did this and why? Especially to the guy that knows all about him anyway. It was just, I think it was a bit heavy-handed, right? It's no need for it. You know, everyone knows that movie. Let's just get on with it. But outside of that, you know, we have Loki and playing the bad cop to X5, and you know they got to find Sylvie because this is the episode we have to find Sylvie, which, you know, we need to talk about the Marvel show pacing, right? I think this is why we need at least 8. I think Star Wars has it right? You know, I think 8 episodes for these shows is the sweet spot, really. The 6 is, having 3 episodes be your halfway point is not enough, and I think 4 is the perfect amount because you can do exactly what you're doing here, right? This show can be exactly the same, but we could have afforded that time to have the explanation at the start. You could have afforded time to have a bit more of like Ouroboros and Casey and B-15 in this episode, because we get a little bit of them, but all it is like, oh yeah, the time loom's still busted, by the way, it's getting worse, we're gonna die because we can't open it. Here's the plot for next week's episode, who's gonna be the focus, because they say they need what's her name, they need Miss Minutes and stuff, but you know, can't get Miss Minutes in He Remains, and yada yada yada, blah 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 blah. And I also don't know if it's part of the no reshoots thing, right? Because they came out here bragging about they haven't done reshoots for this show, and this story is the story they wanted to tell, which, risky, right? That is a huge risk to think you've got everything right off the bat. I mean, so far I think it's working for them, but at the same time I think there is that little bit you could have benefited from a couple of reshoots just to really make it flow and tighten up, because I don't think I'm the only one to complain about how disjointed this episode feels, right, to the first one. Right, I think I've seen a few people say it. I think it's probably the common consensus. You know, despite this being a really good episode filled with really good moments, it didn't flow from one to another. Where I think season 1 really had that flow going on. I haven't watched it in a while. Yeah, I might be completely wrong on that. I might have forgotten entirely, but I think, for me, in my brain, season 1 flowed really well, and this so far just felt like bang bang. Right, it's unfortunate, but hey, we got Sylvie back. You know, we have to go get Sylvie back. She has to show up, because obviously we're halfway through next week, and stuff's got to ramp up, and you can't do it without Sylvie. But you get another great moment between Loki and Sylvie, and just in the McDonald's in, I think, the 70s. I think this episode takes place in the 70s, right? We don't know whether the McDonald's with Sylvie is the same timeline as X5, but X5 was definitely in like 1970s London, I think. I know they tell you what time everything is, but I can't remember between the two, because it's so long. It's blinking, you miss it sort of stuff. But Yeah, X5 kind of betrays him a little bit. Or doesn't betray, he withholds information from them. Very vital information that Docs is gonna bomb the new branches. And yet again, we've had people having this conversation of RIP multiverse, and it's just like, no, multiverse isn't dead. They just pruning branches. You know, the sacred timeline is not just one timeline. As you can tell from the idea of a loom, right? It's called a time loom. Loom implies weaving threads together. The sacred timeline is literally a rope. Right? A rope isn't just one bit of material, it's hundreds of strands spun together and then twisted again to make a rope. So yeah, they're cutting off the frayed edges, essentially, right? You know, the TVA is basically interdimensional, multiversal timeline cable management. You know, that's essentially all it is. But who runs it, who built it, who knows? Obviously Kang, but which Kang is the question? You know, is it the Kang the Conqueror from Ant-Man Quantumania? Well, speaking of Kang, Sylvie is shown to have He Who Remains' little wrist kintsugi pad thing, right, that he used all the time in the end of season 1. It's essentially his version of a tempad, I suppose. So I feel like that's got to play a part. Now, I can't remember if OB in this mentioned like Time Warrior, like how everyone's got. If that was in the first episode, and like Time Warriors, and that's how they got Loki back, because that machine that Mobius used pulled him back out of the timeline and it attached to his like temporal aura or something like that. I can't remember. And I'm going to assume. This is my theory for this, right? They're going to use that He Who Remains tempad disc thing to pull him back out of time. And you're going to have more than the one Kang. Because obviously, I think next week we have to have Victor Timely Kang show up, right? That's just got to be the halfway. But like, oh my god, it's him. It's a Kang. Looks a different variant. You know, either that. And we're going to have He Who Remains back, and he's going to be like a key part in season 3, which I wouldn't be surprised if that's going to be the cliffhanger for this season, is them getting He Who Remains back and putting him back out of time, or at least a version of him, not necessarily the same one, but like a version of him from just slightly before the Multiversal War or something. I feel like that's the sense they could go. You could have some fun with that, I suppose, right? You're having this juxtaposition between Loki, the TVA, and then He Who Remains, and Sylvie. That feels very like Endgamey. Not the movie, but like the actual definition of Endgame. So, you know, you could have Victor Timely. Maybe that's how they beat Victor Timely. Who knows? Maybe, this is another theory I have. That Victor Timely is perfectly innocent and normal in this show, right? You know, he's the Kang version of Howard Stark, right? Blah, 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 blah. He does all the tech stuff in his time. But Loki and Sylvie and the TVA are going to be why he becomes a Kang. I think that's my theory for how this is going to go. But that we will see. You know, performance-wise in this, everyone, again, A-game. The script's solid. It's just a little bit of pacing issues. And the hiccup with that Avengers line. You know, it's... Oh, and B15. But I promise you, it was a good episode. I'm just going to say it's a good episode and then just completely list off things I didn't like about it. Yeah, I think B15 was a bit weird in this because she showed up and then disappeared again. But then she was there. No, she just kept coming and going and nothing really there to do. Well, that's... Maybe that was just a bad edit, who knows? I'm not entirely sure. Maybe they actually cut something out. But, yeah, I'd like a bit more of her. I think Casey and OB I would have liked a bit more of. Hopefully episode 3 is going to be back to the urgency of, hey, this thing is about to collapse, and if this thing collapses, we're all dead. Alright, it is kind of a bit more urgent than finding Sylvie. But, hey, gotta have Sylvie back, because that's what they want. So, yeah. Good episode. Very good episode, personally. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think is going to happen. Right. Do you think Victor Timely Kang is just a normal dude in this, and he's not a Kang yet. You know, how far off do you reckon I am? What did you think of the episode? Let me know in the comments below. And I will catch you next time, so bye-bye.